The communist era in Russia, over 200,000 Armenians were wiped out by the Bolshevik regime. The present situation in this area is still very volatile. Two sides of the mountain face hostile neighbors, Iraq and Iran, and even the lower elevations of the mountain are occupied by terrorist groups of one type or another. Plus, Kurdish terrorists have been known to give expeditioneers a great deal of trouble, robbing them and threatening them with death.
Since 1978, educator John McIntosh has been on 8 expeditions to Mount Ararat.
On this particular day, we had climbed up to the 13,500-foot level on the south face of the mountain and proceeded to set up camp for the night. And we heard a lot of noise. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but it was pretty clear they wanted us out of our tents. The other people in our group were being ordered out, too. They hauled out everything we had and pulled aside our cameras and any other valuables they wanted to keep. They proceeded to torch everything else they didn't want. Thousands of dollars worth of scientific and climbing gear gone up in minutes. They had everybody in our group move back into a line. At that instant, it didn't really dawn on me what was taking place until I looked up. I can tell you this, there was a lot of praying going on right about then. We really pretty much thought this is it. We didn't wait around for them to have to tell us twice. Needless to say, we were pretty happy to get out of there. I guess you'd have to say we were pretty lucky too. These guys were a very tough group. After everything was reported, the Turkish military sent in about 500 troops into the mountain. One terrorist escaped, another was captured, the rest were shot and killed in a gun battle with the soldiers.
A number of recent eyewitness sightings of the Ark on Mount Ararat have taken place. It's interesting to note that in each of these cases, the sightings were accidental. These people did not set out to locate Noah's Ark.
In 1959, we were flying jet fighters over Mount Ararat at around 350 knots at about 3,000 feet over the terrain when we spotted what was said to be Noah's Ark. I didn't think of it as Noah's Ark at the time. I wasn't aware of the biblical story placing Noah's Ark at Mount Ararat. It appeared to be a barge-like structure or a large boxcar type design, and it appeared to be sticking out of a mountain in a kind of a horseshoe depression, and it definitely appeared to be man-made.
During the terms of 4 U.S. presidents, from Nixon to Reagan, I always flew aboard Air Force One as a UPI White House photojournalist covering the activities of the president. On this particular occasion, I was flying aboard with then President Jimmy Carter. We were en route from Poland to Tehran, Iran, to attend a New Year's Day celebration given by the Shah. During the flight while we were over eastern Turkey, our attention was called to the window. It was a dramatic moment as Soviet MiG fighter jets were escorting us wing on wing. At the same time, someone told us if we would look down, we would see Noah's Ark. I looked. There, maybe halfway up the rugged mountain, was a large dark boat, clearly visible. It was partially covered with snow or ice. I'm convinced, based upon what I saw there, it was Noah's Ark.
From the air and from the ground, there is, in fact, a growing body of photographic evidence. Pictures which claim to document a large man-made structure high on Mount Ararat. Ray Anderson, a retired aerospace engineer, has climbed Mount Ararat on 3 occasions and has analyzed photographic enhancements of what he believes is Noah's Ark.
A couple of years ago,
I found one slide that had a very interesting object up in the upper right-hand corner. When I looked at this particular object right here under the microscope, it appeared to me that it could be the north end of the long piece. Now, the ark is broken in two. We have conclusive evidence on that from many witnesses. During an earthquake, the south end of the ark, about 100 feet of it, slid down this slope and lodged in a crevasse. So I examined this object, which is only shown in this one picture of the many hundreds that I examined. And under the microscope, I could quite clearly see what appeared to be the roof, or a section of the roof, of what we call the superstructure.
These photos suggest something large, something man-made is definitely on the mountain. During their long ordeal at sea, Noah and his family had their faith, but very few answers. How long would the floodwaters prevail? Would they find land before running out of food for themselves and the animals?
If there's land out there, she'll find it.
Noah sent out a dove from the ark to search for dry land which may have surfaced above the floodwaters. But the dove returned having found no place to rest. Later, the dove was sent out again. This time the dove returned grasping an olive branch in its beak, indicating the floodwaters had receded. The ark was at sea for many long months, waiting for the storm to cease and the floodwaters to recede. At long last, it came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Now, 8 months after the flood began, other barren mountain peaks became visible. Noah and his family followed God's command and continued to stay aboard the ark for their safety and that of the animals. It was their only shelter and home. It was on the 10th month that Noah climbed to the highest reaches of the ark. There he opened the hatch, which allowed him to reach the roof of the great boat. He climbed onto the roof to be able to see in all directions from where the ark had come to rest. The barren landscape still showed the ravages of the devastating flood. It was to be nearly 60 more days before Noah felt it was safe enough to leave the ark. In all, Noah and his family were aboard the ark for 375 days. And the creatures of the earth were set free once again. Noah's trust in God's commands had been an enormous act of faith. But it was faith well rewarded. Noah and his family were the only humans to survive the great flood. And for Noah's faithfulness, the Lord promised never to bring such destruction again. And for the first time on earth, set a rainbow in the sky, sealing this promise to mankind. Maybe it's ironic or perhaps fitting that those in recent years who have reported being eyewitnesses to the ark are the most average of people from all walks of life. Humble individuals who have no exalted point to prove, no book to sell, no doctrine to foist upon the world. We've located 4 people who have had unique encounters with Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat. We've sought them out, and not one of them is writing a book about their experience. None preaches from a pulpit. In each case, their experience of seeing the Ark was very moving and highly personal. It was in 1973 that Colorado resident Ed Baling became an eyewitness to the Ark. Ed Bailing was a serviceman assigned to a defense installation called Diyarbakir, located about 100 miles southwest of Mount Ararat. Once there, he struck up a friendship with a Turkish army recruit named Mustafa.
I made it a goal when I left the United States to go to Turkey to see as much as I could. Mustafa and I got along very well. He was in the army at that time about a year. I was talking to Mustafa and telling him how I wanted us to go up and see the Ark. He said he had a great uncle that knew where the Ark was, and his great uncle was going to take us up to it. So I was kind of exciting, you know. Boy, I'm on an adventure. We found ourselves at this old tent, this old camp. Mustafa's great uncle, he knew it all, basically. He was the elder of all. His uncle seemed kind of reluctant to take us up there. You know, I'm talking to Mustafa, he says, you know, well, I convinced him that you're okay.
Locals who live here are very suspicious of outsiders. Without this local connection, this visit to the Ark would have been impossible.
I asked him to take a camera, but he preferred that I didn't. He said, Ararat is close to the Russian border, and you're American, I'm Turkish. That could cause some uncomfortable situations. Mustafa's great uncle took us right up the side of this mountain, and we were going around rocks and above cliffs and below cliffs. It was like a trail. He knew exactly where he was going. And I'm tired and I'm winded, and it's, oh boy, when is this ever going to end? When are we going to see the Ark? If we don't see it pretty soon, I want to go back. His uncle turns around and laughs at me, and he points down. And then all of a sudden you look down, and here's this huge, awesome ship sitting below you in this fog, you know. It's almost like a, you know, you picture a dream, and there it is. We walked down around beneath it, and we wound up, I would say, 175, 100 feet below it, because it was sitting on a shelf, a cliff. And we looked up and saw from there, the mouth of it, if we were looking at the end, from the end, it was basically square. However, it was wider than it was tall. The sides were jagged and ripped up a little bit, and I could see what resembled planks. Compared to the hill, the cliff that it was on, it still looked enormous. It's hard to imagine. And I think about it in my mind's eye, and it's still hard to imagine.
In 1943, another serviceman stationed in the Middle East was Ed Davis. Like Ed Bailing, Mr. Davis was befriended by a young man, a civilian who worked for him over there, named Abbas Abbas. He returned a favor by taking him up to see Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat.
At that particular time, you couldn't see the Ark. When you got where you could see it, he would come back and get me. A couple of months later, he come back. He said, we can see it, let's go. We were all tied together, about 20 feet apart with a big rope. I was never as cold, as wet, as hungry and tired in my life as I was when I got up there. He was trying to show me the Ark. When I was standing, it looked like a big piece of blue rock. And then we moved back, and then we could see in the end of it. It was awesome. You knew somebody was watching you. There was something going on. I don't know how to explain that feeling, but you knew someone or something. Well, it was just a mighty power someplace there present. It was Noah's Ark.
Ed Davis's overall story sounds very credible. He was told by his guide it was the Ark. He is convinced that what he saw on Mount Ararat was indeed the sacred Ark of Noah. Still, in hearing a story like that of Ed Davis's, it's understandable to be skeptical of these kinds of claims. Author and art researcher Larry Williams felt the same way.
When I heard Ed Davis's story of Noah's Ark, I thought not only should I investigate the story, but that I had to personally investigate Ed Davis. I publish a newsletter for treasure hunters and people looking for archaeological sites. As such, I've traveled throughout the world investigating sites and stories. One thing I've learned is you can't trust most of the stories.
What Larry Williams did was hire a top-ranked polygraph expert. Using a lie detector, he decided to test the man's word, integrity, and reputation. Publisher Larry Williams meant business when he decided he wanted Ed Davis to sit for a lie detector test.
I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and hired a top polygraph expert with about 15 years of experience on a police force. I told him the Ed Davis story, and he said, Larry, Give me half an hour with this guy and I'll break him. After 2 real intense hours, the polygraph expert came out and said, Larry, I can't tell you what mountain Ed Davis was on. I can't tell you if it was Noah's Ark, but I'll tell you this. Ed Davis saw a boat, and Ed Davis is not lying.
Fate played a big part in the eyewitness account of this man, Dr. Ahmet Ali Arslan. Dr. Arslan is the Washington bureau chief for a major Turkish newspaper and a former broadcaster for the Voice of America radio network. But he knows Mount Ararat like few people do.
My family lives in Aralık, the Turkish town between Mount Ararat and former Soviet Union. I grew up there, and I climbed more than 50 times to the summit of Mount Ararat, including with many internationally recognized explorers like Fernand Navarra and astronaut the late Jim Irving. In 1989, I climbed to the northern part of Mount Ararat, which is upper side of Ahura Gorge, the most dangerous side of Mount Ararat, covered with huge glaciers and very dangerous crevasses. Because of my Turkish nationality, I was given permission to investigate on certain areas on Mount Ararat where the others could not go. I went to check a certain area which had been shown in a satellite photo as a possible location of Noah's Ark. I was coming close to the site. Suddenly, the ice and snow began to give away. I ended sliding about 100 feet. It was fortunate that I didn't fall in the crevasses. Otherwise, I would be dead. When I regained my footing, I noticed 100 or 200 feet away, there was a building type of structure, definitely made of wood. It shouldn't be there, just 1,000 or 2,000 feet below the summit. It almost looked like a captain's cabin. I immediately took my camera and shot pictures. You can see straight, flat beams and such. Definitely appears man-made structure. My belief is that what I saw and what I took in my photographs definitely, without question, is Noah's Ark.
So far, we have counted a number of 20th century civilian and military aerial sightings of Noah's Ark. We've also presented the modern-day eyewitness accounts of George Hagopian, Ed Behling, Ed Davis, and Ahmet Arslan. But is there one single factor that all these accounts have in common to help us actually find the Ark for the world to see? The answer is yes. The Ark's location on Mount Ararat. All sightings have been on the north side of Mount Ararat, above the Ahura Gorge.
In an August 1990 helicopter expedition around Mount Ararat, we flew over the glacier on the northeast face of the mountain. At that time, we took this photograph of the rectangular object we believed to be the Ark of Noah.
So we have the photograph shot by the Carl Baugh group where the shape of an object in the glacier could be seen. But we took that a step farther, having the photograph computerized for analysis.
Now we're seeing a computer image of the primary object identified by satellite. As we enhance the computer image of this object, we can see that the object is rectangular in shape. Here, this is the outline, and the object extends over a ledge. In my opinion, this is clearly a man-made object.
Our mystery would already be solved if the Central Intelligence Agency and our Defense Department would only release their reconnaissance photos of spy satellite imagery of eastern Turkey. And why won't they?
There at the Strategic Air Command are secret documents right now which have pictures of Noah's Ark. They're even labeled Noah's Ark on the picture.
We know our government has photos and satellite imagery of that area of Noah's Ark. However, they probably won't want to release that because when they do, they'll also disclose just how good our spy technology has become.
Well, since our government would not cooperate in our search to pinpoint Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat, from France we have imagery from the satellite known as SPOT, the French SPOT satellite imagery taken 555 miles above the Earth's surface, can identify objects down to 10 meters in size. That's about 30 feet. This was a source of photo reconnaissance used by American fighter pilots in the Gulf War against Saddam Hussein. We've brought the latest modern technology into our search for the Ark. Interestingly enough, what may be difficult to make out in photographs taken at a distance of 300 to 500 feet on a fog-shrouded mountain may be identified more precisely and scientifically from hundreds of miles above the Earth with the use of three-dimensional animation. We've taken the French SPOT satellite imagery to a Boston company called TASC. It's an applied information technology firm that specializes in 3D terrain animation. It is at TASC that we will continue our search for the Ark at locations pinpointed by satellite. In our animation model, we're approaching Mount Ararat from a couple of hundred miles away. We see Little Ararat in the foreground, and as we approach the two mountains, we're setting our course to fly between them as we go into a circular flight path around Mount Ararat. The animation clearly shows the finger glaciers on the mountain and the deep scar of the Ahora Gorge on the north side, above which the Ark sightings have occurred. The Ahora Gorge is an awesome sight of sheer cliffs all the way up to the Ararat snowline, which continues upward to Ararat's multiple summit peaks. Coming back to the Ahora Gorge across the Abish glaciers, we're going to examine 3 locations where parts of the Ark have been pinpointed by satellite as well as by eyewitnesses to determine if we can obtain a better visual perspective of the sites. First, we're going to look in this fishhook area on the eastern plateau where Ray Anderson believes the larger piece of the Ark is located. Moving down from about an 11 position on a clock face to a 5 position, we're directly over the site pinpointed by the SPOT satellite and depicted in photos taken on 3 different successful Ark expeditions. Using the imagery from the SPOT satellite, we will attempt to pinpoint the exact location of Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat as seen by military satellites, eyewitnesses, and photographers.
In this computer lab, we're now seeing on our computer screen SPOT satellite imagery of Mount Ararat. This S-shaped crevasse is about 1,500 feet long and 90 feet wide. In the middle, we see a defined object extending out of the snow over a rocky ledge. Now in this SPOT imagery close-up, we're able to measure the size of this object. We see here the crevasse with the gray pixels defining a rocky ledge. Extending out of the snow in this area, we see an object coming out over the ledge. Each pixel is 32 feet, so this object is about 80 feet wide and extends out of the snow about 90 feet. According to SPOT satellite imagery and helicopter photo enhancement, this rectangular object is not part of the natural terrain. According to military satellite information, the object is made of wood.
It was at this site that the 1990 Shockey helicopter expedition made another interesting discovery. Expedition member Carl Baugh explains.
In late August 1990, our team did 11 separate helicopter expeditions around Mount Ararat. Our advanced satellite information specified this immediate area as being the primary target, and the spectrographic lines indicated that it was of wood.
Now that is an impressive finding. But there is more as we move to the third site, located right on the treacherous upper edge of the Yahora Gorge itself. It is here that experts say there is another broken portion of the arc protruding from the glacial ice and clearly exposed as the weather permits. It was at this site that several years ago astronaut James Irwin, accompanied by a Dutch TV crew, took a most amazing photograph.
We were in a plane with Jim Irwin on board, flying around the Ararat Mountain, and then flying around the Yahora Gorge. On that particular spot, we did see an object sticking out of the snow cap. It looked like the Ark of Noah. We really got excited, but our time of flying was running out. We had to go back to our base. But some of us were really convinced this could well be the Ark of Noah. So on that very last expedition ever made, that got all the permissions of the Turkish government, finally, that afternoon, we think we saw Noah's Ark.
James Irwin didn't want to announce his startling discovery until he could mount a ground expedition to film at the site. Sadly, Irwin died before he could return to Mount Ararat. Astronaut James Irwin's space explorations will be remembered for generations. And thanks to him for providing the world with this most amazing photograph, perhaps we can now consider that Irwin's personal spiritual quest to find Noah's Ark has been fulfilled as well. Just as there are some people who are convinced by the easiest evidence, there are others who are skeptical even in the face of the most conclusive proof. In the case of Noah's Ark, there is a third group of people who no longer need to be convinced.
What I saw is Noah's Ark.
It's there. All the people have to